In 1959, 9 experienced hikers disappeared on a remote mountain in the Soviet Union. Weeks later, rescuers finally found them. Their tent had been sliced open from the inside. Some had crushed ribs, one had a fractured skull, one was missing her tongue, and traces of radiation were found on some of their clothing. The official investigation couldn't explain what had happened. More than 65 years later, people still argue over the answer. Was it an avalanche, a secret military experiment, or something far stranger? This is the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass. It all began in January 1959 when 10 experienced hikers set off into the Ural Mountains. Their leader was 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, and completing the expedition would earn them the highest hiking certification in the Soviet Union. Before reaching the mountains, one member became ill and turned back. That decision unknowingly saved his life. The remaining 9 continued toward a mountain called Kolatsiakl, a name that translates to Dead Mountain. On February 1st, they pitched their tent on an exposed slope instead of camping in the shelter of the forest below. It was the last night they would ever spend alive. When the group failed to return, rescuers began searching the mountains. Days later, they found the campsite. The tent was still standing, food was untouched, cameras, backpacks, boots, and heavy winter jackets were still inside. But the entrance hadn't been used. Instead, someone had cut through the fabric from the inside. Whatever happened that night was so terrifying that 9 experienced hikers fled into temperatures below -30°C, wearing little more than socks and underwear. Even stranger, the footprints showed they hadn't run. They had calmly walked away. The first 2 bodies were discovered beneath a large cedar tree beside the remains of a small fire. 3 more were found between the tree and the tent as if they had tried to return but froze before reaching it. Months later, the remaining 4 were discovered beneath deep snow inside a nearby ravine. Their injuries shocked investigators. 1 had a fractured skull. 2 had chest injuries so severe they were compared to those from a high-speed car crash, yet there were almost no external wounds. 1 woman was missing her tongue, and several victims were missing their eyes. Then came another mystery. Tests found traces of radioactive contamination on some of their clothing. The Soviet investigation ended with a bizarre conclusion. The hikers had died because of an unknown, compelling natural force. That single sentence fueled decades of speculation. People blamed secret military weapons, escaped prisoners, UFOs, and even the legendary Yeti. But despite countless theories, none were backed by convincing evidence. Then in 2021, scientists revisited the case using modern computer simulations. Their conclusion was surprisingly simple. The hikers had unknowingly pitched their tent on a weak layer of snow. As strong winds piled more snow onto the slope, a small slab avalanche collapsed onto the tent, injuring several members. Fearing a larger avalanche, they made a split-second decision. They cut their way out of the tent and headed downhill toward the trees. There, they tried to survive. Some built a fire. Some attempted to return for their supplies but froze before reaching the tent. Others dug a snow shelter that likely collapsed under the weight of the snow, explaining the severe internal injuries. The missing tongue and eyes were most likely the result of months of natural decomposition and scavenging animals. Even the radiation has a likely explanation. Some hikers had previously worked around radioactive materials, making contamination of their clothing entirely possible. Does this answer every question? Not completely. Some details remain debated, and that's exactly why the Dyatlov Pass incident continues to fascinate millions of people. But today, the avalanche theory is considered the explanation that fits the evidence better than secret experiments, aliens, or monsters. Sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't created by the supernatural. Sometimes nature is terrifying enough.